Well, I would like to thank the Geneva Center for Human Rights and Advancement and Global Dialogue for the invitation to present our experience. I will be talking about the Colombian case. All right. Well, Colombia, as you may know, has faced more than 5 decades of political armed conflict, which has its roots in social inequalities, poverty, restricted political participation, absence of government in the marginalized areas, among others. This has left a history of human rights violation, a culture of violence, legitimation, and social exclusion, and a mindset based on retaliation attitudes and distrust in the political institutions and system. Last year, Colombia regained hope on the possibility of a reconstruction of the country, thanks to the peace treaty signed with the FARC, one of the largest guerrilla groups in the country. As a result of this, high expectations were placed on the educational system as a means to face this post-conflict scenario, but preparing society to build a more peaceful, inclusive, and democratic system. According to the National Ministry of Education, education may play at least three important roles to contribute to the post-conflict challenges. First, it may help to close the inequality gap by increasing the access to education of those who have not had an institution to attend or to those who have deserted the system. Second, through education, children and youth may learn to interact within a more restorative system where reparation, forgiveness, and reconciliation with those who have been considered enemies is possible. And third, education is a key to help all the population to better understand our past through the building of historic memory, which in turn may help society to prevent the perpetuation or relapse on violent conflict, and to construct a more pacific, inclusive, democratic, and sustainable future for us. Foreseeing this scenario, in 2004, the Ministry of Education launched the National Citizenship Competencies Program, a program that is aimed at creating a culture of peace and human rights defense. Peace education can be understood in many ways. One of them is Galton's perspective in particular, which proposes two different perspectives: a negative peace view that focuses on the absence of direct violence through the prevention of aggression and discrimination, the promotion of peaceful resolution of conflicts, and the support of reparation, forgiveness, and reconciliation of former enemies, and also a positive view of peace that is aimed at the promotion of social justice and the absence of the structural violence that is in equity, inclusion, and democracy. The Citizenship Competencies Program in Colombia regards a citizen as an individual who develops both constructive and pacific relationships with others, reducing direct violence, but also actively and pacifically participating in the promotion of transformations in the context to improve the social conditions of his or her proximal and distal communities. Therefore, our program adopts a view of a citizen who works towards promoting both negative and positive views of peace, all of this in the spirit of enhancing and recognizing the defense of human rights. This national Peace curriculum or citizenship program is a curricular innovation and includes the explicit formulation of citizenship learning goals, the development of a periodic administration of a national citizenship competencies test, teachers training, support for the development and evaluation of citizenship education programs, and the development of pedagogical materials for citizenship education. Here, I am going to focus in this presentation on the analysis of the learning goals proposed in the program, looking at how human rights perspective is included as a transversal topic across these objectives, and then looking at how these objectives can be articulated with the Global Citizenship Education Program proposed by UNESCO. So, as I mentioned, this National Citizenship Competencies Program, which is based on a national peace curriculum, is a curriculum innovation which formulates learning objectives. Part of the program is that. These are known as standards in the program, which are comprised of citizenship competencies. These are known, we understand citizenship competencies as a set of cognitive, emotional, communicative, and integrative competencies that coordinated among themselves, along with knowledge and attitudes, make it possible for an individual or a social group to exercise as citizens on the local, national, and global community. These citizenship competencies are framed within a human rights perspective as they offer the basic tools for each person to learn to respect, defend, and promote fundamental human rights, relating them to everyday situations where these may be infringed because of our own deeds or as by those of others. In these cases, citizenship competencies represent the skills and the necessary knowledge to build peaceful coexistence, to exercise democratic participation, and to value pluralism. These standards, the citizenship standards in the program, are formulated by 5 age groups and cycles, as you see on this left column. And here you see the general description of the 3 domains where citizenship can be exercised, and that illustrate how human rights are implicitly articulated in each of these domains. You may want to pay a special attention to the words highlighted in red, which are not shown in this screen right now, but I'll let you know which ones are they. So in general terms, we refer to peaceful coexistence as the capacity to establish good social relationships based on justice, empathy, tolerance, solidarity, and respect for others. So here I want to highlight the idea of justice, tolerance, solidarity, and respect. Democratic participation responsibility refers to the capacity and willingness to lead and take part in collective and participative decision making. So this is related with the right that everyone has to participate in the collective construction of our communities. And plurality, identity, and enrichment with differences is understood as the recognition of equal dignity in all human beings and valuing of the characteristics of others who are different. So this is highlighting the idea of equality. Now, I want to show you more specifically some of the specific standards that we have in these grades. So for each one of the age groups or cycles, there's a set of specific standards, and here are some examples. And here I do have highlighted some of the human rights perspective and how it's integrated into these learning objectives. So for example, you will see for the first grades, which is the 1st to 3rd grade, we have things like, and these are stated in the first person, I identify maltreatment situations occurring around me. I show displeasure when I or someone else in the classroom is not listened or taken into account. I value similarities and difference amongst people close to me. And for the last cycle, which is the 10th to 11th grade, we have specific standards such as I critically analyze the human rights situation in Colombia and in the world. I express empathy for groups or people whose rights have been violated, or I understand and respect for difference. That doesn't mean accepting that other people or groups violate human rights or constitutional norms. So here we also see how these learning objectives integrate the knowledge, valuing, and defense of human rights, such as safety, participation, equality, and freedom from discrimination. Also, these standards incorporate different types of competencies, such as emotional, cognitive, communicative, and integrative competencies. And here I want to show you how want to compare the competencies that we propose with those that UNESCO proposes in the Global Citizenship Education Program. So we can find some similarities. What we see is that our communicative competencies could be integrated into what UNESCO rewards as behavioral competencies. Here are some examples of the competencies that we intentionally included in the standards. So in the cognitive domain, we have competencies such as perspective taking, critical thinking, and consideration of consequences, which are, of course, articulated with specific citizenship-related knowledge. On the socio-emotional domain, we have competencies such as constructive use of certain emotions, such as indignation, and the development of empathic responses, which are essential for the awareness and defense of other human rights violations. And on the behavioral domain, we include competencies such as active listening and assertiveness, which are fundamental to develop a constructive dialogue with others and to participate in the construction of a more inclusive, equal, and peaceful society. Now, I want to finish by showing some examples on how We think that the Colombian Competencies curriculum is being further articulated with the global citizenship education perspective. Right now, we are advancing in 2 lines of work to seek to expand our view. First, so far we have integrated some of the GCED competencies in the last grades of high school, the high school curriculum, but we need to expand them more explicitly towards the earlier grades. And second, we see a potential for expanding the way we address some of the topics that we relate to the competencies that I presented. For example, in the cognitive domain, we can reinforce the analysis of universal human rights and how they are being violated not only in our own sociopolitical context, but also abroad. We can also deepen the analysis on how policy decision-making may privilege the interest of certain groups and exclude those of others. As for the socio-emotional domain, we know that empathy may be developed easily towards those who are close to us, but we need to put greater efforts in amplifying the social systems towards which children and youth are empathic, and reaching those who they don't know, who live in remote places and who belong to different cultures. Finally, in the behavioral domain, we believe we can foster children's and youth awareness on the social exclusion of individuals or groups from other cultures. We think that we can take advantage of virtual social networks to promote the defense of rights of those in disadvantaged conditions. And of course, we need to make more efforts not only to fight for social justice of humans in the present moment, but also for those in the future generations by analyzing and taking action to preserve our natural resources and promote a sustainable world. As you see, we are putting a great effort in educating future generations of children and youth to enable them to transform our current system in a more peaceful and sustainable world. Thank you.